Hey there everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Elizabeth with Ellie's Handcrafted Jewelry, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create this reversible pendant using a donut-shaped stone and a couple gauges of wire. It's got pretty swirly accents on both sides, and it's even great for those who like fidget jewelry since the stone turns nicely in the frame. And if you'd like to see these tutorials each week, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so that you never miss a new video. But before we get started, I'd like to thank Pendant for sponsoring this video. Pendant is a gem seller located in the United States and has a variety of high-quality stones. Search by gemstone, shape, size, quality, and more to find the perfect stone for your project. I've left a link in the description below to their website as well as their Facebook page so that you can stay up to date on any new arrivals or sales. I'd also like to tell you about my new website, where you can sign up for a monthly newsletter detailing new tutorials, videos, and any upcoming projects. You can also find some written tutorials for sale if you prefer working at your own pace, and it helps me to continue creating free tutorials for all of you. I've left the links in the description below, and thanks so much for taking the time to support this channel. Now let's jump into the video. Now for materials, you're going to need 20 gauge round wire, 28 gauge round wire for weaving, a donut shaped stone, mine is about 37 millimeters in diameter, and for tools you're going to need chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, flush cutters, flat nose pliers if you have them, a ruler, a sharpie or some way to mark your wire, and a spring clamp or a ring clamp. And I've left all of these in the description as well. Now here I'm marking my wire at 5 inches. I have cut 4 10-inch segments, and I'm going to go ahead and place them in my clamp just to make the weaving process a little easier. And then kind of spread out the wires a little bit so that way I can weave in between them a lot easier. From there, I'm going to slide my weaving wire in between the 2 sets of base wires and begin wrapping around the bottom, well, the second to last base wire here. I'm going to wrap around it a couple times to get started, at least 2 or 3 times. Scrunch down my wire a tad, and then I'm going to wrap my weaving wire around the 2 center base wires 2 times. I'm going to go ahead and bring my weaving wire in between those 2 base wires, then up and over, and then down and around the bottom, and then back in between those 2 center base wires 1 time, scrunching my wire, and then wrapping around those 2 center base wires 2 times again. Then again in between those 2 base wires, then up and over the top 2 base wires, back down and around the bottom 2 base wires and in between, and then again around the 2 center base wires. And this is going to create almost like a diamond weave. Now once I've woven about 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to go ahead and pull the tail piece off. And then I'm going to separate these into 2 groups of wires, so 2 on the right side and 2 on the left side. And I'm going to create a lashing weave around this bottom base wire by wrapping around the second to last base wire 5 times. Now I'm just going to wrap around these 2 base wires 2 times. And then I'm going to wrap around that second base wire 5 more times. We're just going to go ahead and continue this weave until we reach about 2 inches. Now once we've reached this 2-inch mark, I'm going to go ahead and cut a long tail for my weave here. I'm going to cut off and leave about maybe 6 inches or so of weaving wire in case I need to weave any more. Now I've just separated these wires and I'm going to coil this inner wire here. So I'm grabbing my weaving wire from my little bobbin and I'm going to begin coiling around this one wire, and I'm actually coiling further up the wire. Makes it a little easier to coil, and then I can just scrunch it down when I get enough coil. Now I'm just going to go ahead and scrunch down this wire a little bit. And then I'm going to check it against my other weave here, and I want it to be about the same length, so I'm going to go ahead and continue coiling my wire. Now once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take the other side of my work here and feed it through the hole in the donut stone here, and clear up to the other end. From there, I'm going to bend my wire straight up. That'll kind of secure it a little bit. And now I'm going to be working on the other side of the stone where all my woven wire are. And I'm going to go ahead and pull off this tail piece that's kind of hovering over here. Just doing the pull and twist method. And now I'm going to go ahead and start swirling some wire. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this off to the side a little bit, grab my flat nose pliers and make sure that my weave is facing outward. And holding it with the bottom of my thumb here, I'm going to go ahead and start swirling it over top of the stone. And just using my flat nose pliers, making sure to keep my weave straight. And just continue to gently curve it. Again, grabbing my pliers and straightening that out a little bit more. And just take your time with this process, so that way you have a nice, beautiful weave at the end of it. Now once I got my swirl kind of where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and grab my coiled wire and basically follow along the previous weave. Then last but certainly not least is this bare wire, and just following along with the previous wires. And I've finished my swirls. I'm going to go ahead and put my thumb here on the top of the weave and just very carefully curve it around the bare base wires behind the stone. Now I'm just going to grab my flush cutters and cut off this section here. And then I'm going to tuck my wire in with my flat nose pliers. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and create a little bit of a curve in my coiled wire, and then bring up my bare wire next to it. And then I'm going to curve it into the curve, and I'm going to place a swirl in that initial curve. So I'm going to trim that off with my flesh cutters, and then I will create a little swirl. Now once I've done that, it's time for yet another swirl. So I got my coiled wire here, and I'm going to go ahead and coil a little bit more on there so I have plenty of wire to swirl. Then I've got maybe another 1/2 inch added to that. I'm going to go ahead and begin curling the wire up and over the top of this previous swirl. Just very carefully using my fingers to help me aid in the swirling process. Now once I got my wire swirled, I'm just going to work on some minor adjustments, making sure that everything is straight and lining up where I want it. Once everything is fairly straight up and down, I'm going to grab my flesh cutters and trim off the excess weaving wire. And then I'm going to go ahead and curve this over a little bit. Sorry for my hand in the way. And curve this over to create another little swirl that's going to be on top. So I'm going to just trim that off with my flesh cutters. Then grab my round nose pliers and create a little loop to finish off my swirls. And if you don't like the length at any point, you can grab your flesh cutters and trim that off like I am, and then go ahead and finish off the swirl. Now at this point we need to secure our swirls to something, so I'm going to go ahead and secure them to that weave behind it. And we're going to go ahead and continue basically a diamond weave. So I'm going to start by pulling these wires apart, bringing it in between the two sets of wires. I'm going to wrap around at least 2 times, up to 3 times is all right. But I'm just going to do 2. I'm going to scooch them down to the very bottom here. Then I'm going to bring my weaving wire in between the 2 bottom wires, and then up and over around these swirls here in the front, bringing it back in between those wires. Being careful just to wrap around the coil wire there in the center and making sure that my other bare wire is secure. Then from there, I'm going to bring my wire around down to the bottom and swirling around, well, wrapping around the 2 middle base wires 2 times, just like with the diamond weave. Then separating my wires a little bit, making sure that they're straight. I'm going to bring the wire in between those 2 woven wires, down, then up and over, then down and around, back in between those 2 center base wires. Just like that. I know it's a little more difficult to see, try and do it for you again. I'm going to wrap around these 2 center base wires 2 times. Then I'm going to bring the weaving wire in between those 2 wires, then up and over, then down and around, back in between those 2 base wires, like so. And we're going to go ahead and continue this weave until we reach that little loop on the top. Now once I've woven just kind of behind that little loop, I'm going to bring my wire back down around here somewhere, back in between these bottom 2 base wires. And at the time where I wrap 2 times around the center wire, I'm going to go ahead and catch that little one in one of those weaves. So that way it is secured to the bail here. So once, just like that. And then just around the 2 base wires 1 time to finish off that little weave. Just like so. And I'm just going to weave a little bit longer. Now once I've reached about 1 1/4 inches, or a little less than that, I'm going to go ahead and begin creating my bail. But before I do that, I'm going to pull off any tail pieces that are left behind. And without cutting off my weaving wire, I'm going to go ahead and fold this over to create my bail. And once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and separate these wires back into 2 groups, and we're basically going to weave like we did before. So I'm going to create a lashing weave on this bottom base wire here, and start by wrapping around the innermost base wire 5 times. I'm just going to scrunch down those wires, then wrap around 2 times around the bottom base wires. And then again around the innermost base wire 5 more times, and we're just going to go ahead and continue this weave for a little while. Now once I've wrapped around another 1 1/4 inches or so, maybe 1 1/8 inches, I'm going to go ahead and trim off this wire. So leaving about 6 inches in case I need any extra wire. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a coil on the other wire just like we did before. And once my coil is about the same length as my weave, I'm going to go ahead and take the tail piece and pull and twist, just like so. And now we can begin swirling our wire. So with this swirl, I'm actually going to force it this way. Again, taking your time to do this. And grabbing your flat nose pliers when you need them, just to make sure that the weaves are straight. I'm just going to begin swirling over the top, just like so. Being very careful to keep my weave flat. Now, once I've created my initial swirl, I'm going to go ahead and grab the coiled wire and just follow along. And then once I do that, I will grab my bare wire and follow along with that one as well. Now once I've kind of gotten that where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and create a little swirl with my bare wire, like so, at least curving it where I'm going to want the final swirl to be. At this point, grabbing my flush cutters, I kind of like it where it's at, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. Now at this point, I didn't actually mean to take off this wire. I was actually going to use it to help secure everything to the frame. So just keep that in mind. You can either do it that way with the remaining weaving wire, or you can do it the way that I ended up doing it for this video. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and trim these two woven wires here and grab my flat nose pliers and fold them in half basically so that I can tuck them in behind the diamond weave. Now because I cut my weaving wire here, I'm going to go ahead and use this remaining weaving wire to secure both of these pieces to the diamond weave. But before I do that, I need to trim off some excess weaving wire from my bobbin. So I'm going to cut off maybe 8 or 9 inches to make sure that I have plenty in case I need to coil anymore. Sorry that this is off camera, just cutting wire. Now once I've cut my weaving wire, I'm going to go ahead and trace this along the woven wire and feed this over top and behind this weave. Now once I brought it underneath that weave, securing those other weaves, I'm going to bring this up and underneath my coil wire here and just secure the weave by wrapping it around at least 2 or 3 times. From there, I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and round off this bare wire here, trying to keep this on camera. Sorry, guys. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make some minor adjustments. Once everything is situated, I'm going to go ahead and grab this coil, or grab this loop with my coil wire and pull it up into itself. And I'm going to go ahead and finish coiling this wire to create my final loop. Now I'm just going to go ahead and scooch my wire up, making sure that it's nice and neat. Pulling this alongside the swirl there, and then I'm going to go ahead and curve this outward to create my final swirl. Just making sure my weaving wire is out of the way, grabbing my flush cutters and trimming off this end so I can have a nice little swirl. And I'll just use my round nose pliers to curve those in. And that loop is a little longer than I like it, so I'm going to go ahead and trim it off. Just like that. Then grab my round nose pliers and go ahead and create my little swirl. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the remaining of the weaving wire, feed it back underneath the diamond weave here in the back, just so that we can secure our loop to the frame. Then I'm going to bring this in underneath the little loop. This is going to be a little hard to see, but I'm going to go ahead and take this weaving wire and basically secure it by wrapping it around this tiny little swirl at the end. And the way I like to do this is basically give it a hook at the end of my weaving wire, so hooking it there with my fingernail, and that kind of helps me feed that through, so that way there's a little angle, so it's going to come up through the top, just like that. Then just like sewing, pulling that down, and we're just going to secure it by wrapping that around 3 times. Now I'm just going to do a little pull and twist, pull off the excess weaving wire, and do any final adjustments with your fingers or your pliers gently. And here's the finished piece. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to support my channel, the easiest way to do that is to like this video and subscribe to my channel. You're also invited to join the Facebook group where you can ask questions and share your work and learn from others. I've left all the links in the description below, and until next time, happy weaving!